Welcome back, everyone, to All About America's Team, brought to you by Delahanty Media. This is episode 5, and before we get into all of this great topics and news that we have today, I'm Ray Nickens,
And my name is Owen DeChico.
and we are both live from Austin for me and New Jersey for Owen. And once again, if you're new here, this is the show where we talk everything and anything about the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. So, whether or not you're a fan of the Cowboys or a hater of the Cowboys, this is the show for you. You can find us on Instagram at All About America's Team and also on Twitter at America's Team, capital P, capital C. And also, if you wanted to check out the video recording of this show, all you have to do is just go into YouTube. It's a little bit harder to find, but just go into YouTube and search All About America's Team. And one of these episodes or live streams will pop up, and you could just click that, and it'll take you to the YouTube channel. But we have a lot of great topics today. But first, Owen, what do you got for us for the news?
This past week, cornerback Rashard Robinson was cut by Dallas ahead of training camp. He was going to serve, I believe, a 2-game suspension for PEDs. Personally, I think this releasing it's not going to kill us at all. I think we have at least, even though our secondary isn't our strength, we still have 4 to 5 cornerbacks that are way better than him. I also like this because, knock on wood, we haven't had any bad offseason. We haven't had a bad offseason. So I think cutting the only player that's in a service suspension is also good, because I hopefully Mike and Dan Quinn are trying to instill some goodness in this franchise that we haven't had for a very long time. So hopefully we're not in the future years, we're not going to be having any of these stupid suspensions or anything like that. But Ray, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, I didn't know who Rashard Robinson was until you told me who he was, and I went on Google and Googled him, and his stats are pretty pathetic, especially for a cornerback coming out of LSU. Didn't play much in the NFL, only had a few interceptions, and the fact that he was on PEDs and still sucked is quite alarming. So I have no problem with them cutting him.
I think the best part was because after they cut him, he did what the usual player that does when they know they're in the wrong, and he goes on Instagram and I think he had at least 4 to 5 Instagram stories of just specific plays where he's doing the right thing, and it's either a bad throw or just other things working in his favor. Kind of like when a quarterback overthrows the wide receiver by 30 yards and the cornerback's like, I did the right thing. That's kind of him. But hopefully after he serves his 2-game suspension, he will be signed and he will leave his PED ways behind him, and hopefully he'll have a good year. Hopefully he'll have a good rest of his career, but none of it will be in Dallas anymore.
Yeah, I wish him the best of luck. Just don't catch 4 interceptions against the Cowboys down the line.
Yeah,
that's all I ask.
Our luck will end up in Washington and will become their best corner.
Yes, that's exactly what we need and I need.
Yeah.
But that's all for just cuts. Training camp starts today, so our boys are back in Oxnard, California. Mike McCarthy's out there, Dan Quinn's out there, Dak's out there, Zeke's out there, everyone's out there. I'm not really sure what's going on. I'm sure they're all having good practice, no injuries as of now. I don't think. Knock on wood.
I think they're gonna have them. I think from what I gathered, the team's just getting together. They're not having any practice. I think tomorrow or the day after that, they're gonna have a media day, and then after that, they're gonna start getting into things. But I don't think even Cam Akers, how he tore his Achilles, hopefully he'll get better. That injury was all personal training. So I don't think any team has started yet. I think they're just the team's just in Oxnard and they're just doing media stuff.
Cam Akers.
running back for the
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
Matt
That's who I
Stafford's
thought.
team.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
that's who I
Rams.
thought. I was just making sure it wasn't some
Yeah,
defensive lineman on our team because
no, no.
yeah. But yeah, that's all we have for the news. Just before we get into current events, after we ended our show, actually a few days after we ended our show, was like, I forgot to address this, but Owen put an injured quarterback who's been 6-11 his last 17 starts above the reigning Super Bowl champion Tom Brady, who had a not bad year for an old man, a couple like 45,000 something ish yards, 40 touchdowns, 10 picks, 11 picks, whatever. He had like one or two, three interception games. But I just wanted to give the floor to Owen. I will sit back and relax, drink my water, not say a word, and just see if Owen can be a masterful storyteller and explain to me why in the absolute universe would he take Dak Prescott in his top 5 when he hasn't really played a lot since I think October. But the floor is yours. I am sitting back. Go ahead.
Okay, so you already got into some of the stuff I wanted to say, but I'm gonna go into two different topics. I'm gonna go into Dak versus Brady, their last 16 games, and Dak versus Brady, their first 48 games. So Dak in his last 16 games, Brady, this is excluding the playoffs. It's just regular season. So Dak, because I didn't know how to like add up all the QBR and stuff, so I was just like first six for the last 16 games. We'll go from there. So Dak had in his last 16 games has 5,100 yards, 28 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and a 98 QBR. And Brady has 4,600 yards, 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and a 72.5 QBR. So I think the issue is that I think right now in both people's careers, accolades aside, if we're just gonna look at straight numbers and put like team, like if you're gonna just only do numbers and forget about the rest of the team and their wins, Dak is a much better quarterback, like with stats wise, more yards, less touchdowns because Brady will always have a lot of touchdowns, less interceptions, and he has a 20-point higher QBR, which is a pretty big stat for quarterbacks. And now and if you're going to go into the first 48 games, this is Brady's first 4 years because he didn't play a lot in the beginning of his career, and Dak's first 3 years. So Brady had he was 34-12, and Dak was 32-16. Brady had a 61.9 completion percentage. Dak had a 66.1 completion percentage.
Can you hold on one quick? Can you just repeat their wins again for me? I
Yeah.
kind of missed that.
So in his first 48 games, Brady had 34 wins and Dak had 32.
Okay.
So it's pretty much neck and neck.
Gotcha.
Brady had 2 more touchdowns. He had 69 and Dak had 67. Brady had an 85.9 quarterback rate and Dak had a 96, which for his first 3 years, 96 is pretty great. Brady's longest pass was 91 yards. Dak's was 90. Brady had 38 interceptions and Dak had 25. So I think some of the biggest differences in their career obviously is that Brady had already had a Super Bowl in this time. Also that Brady had a much better coaching staff than Dak did. I don't think it would take a genius to know that Bill Belichick is a far superior coach than Jason Garrett is. And I think a new quarterback coming into the league, you're going to have much more success if you have one of the greatest minds to ever step on a football field. But if you just want to look at stats, I think a good case can be made that Dak had a better stat-wise start off to his career than Brady did. And also Dak broke Brady's record, I think, for the most passes without an interception, which I think he still holds that record which was pretty big for me when he was a rookie. I don't know how you felt about that, but that was a pretty big accomplishment that he had, kind of one that no one really talks about.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you want to look at like if you say the name Tom Brady, that's going to have much more of an aura than Dak's name will. I think Dak gets a lot of hate for being the quarterback of Dallas. I think if he was on any other team, whether it be a small market or a different market, I think that he would be talked about a lot more. Because I remember when no one knew if the Cowboys were gonna give Dak an extension.
I do remember that.
All over Instagram was other like teams fan pages photoshopping their favorite team's jersey onto Dak. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's like fun, and it's kind of like the thing to knock down players like Zeke and Dak and just anyone that wears a star on their helmet. And Dak knew that when he was drafted. So I think that it just comes with the job. But if you look at the stats, I think it's kind of hard to not realize that he was better. I also think Dak hasn't, out of his first 5 years, he's only had a top 10 defense once, I think. And besides that, his defense has been middle of the pack or horrendous like it was last year, which is really hard for a quarterback to, especially with not having training camp. And I know that whenever I bring up no training camp, you talk about Herbert, but I think that this team, there were a lot of new pieces, a new head coach, new basically everything. And for them to go in and not have a training camp or anything, and for Dak to put the numbers that he did, even though they were losing, they should have lost all of their games if it weren't for the Falcons. I think that just Dak got too much hate for those losses. And you and I have talked about this a lot. We both wish that Dak would start off hot, was not hot, but he would start off decent and wouldn't start off like he hadn't thrown a football in the past 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we've also said Dak's a second half quarterback. I wish he wasn't, but he plays much better in the third and fourth quarters than he does in the first two. But I feel like if I were to have either the last 16 games or their first 48 games, if I were to have those on a sheet of paper with no if I didn't say who the quarterbacks were, I don't know if I think you might have chosen Dak over Brady, but Brady's also has all those achievements in his career, so it kind of by default you'd think he'd be a better quarterback than Dak. But I think right now in his career, Dak is a better quarterback than Brady. And I guess we'll find out week 1, which I'm looking forward to. Because even though a lot of people think Dallas will get destroyed, if even though it's week 1, so it's kind of hard. Even if they were to lose by like 30, it's week 1. But if they were to put up a fight and have it be a 1-score game and maybe even win, I think that would be very good for this team. And I think it would also be good to decipher who would be better at that point in their career. Who'd be better for like right now? Would be a better quarterback.
You good?
It would have made a lot more sense if I had these stats last week to kind of back up. But that's kind of my, because even Brady, before they got hot, his own coach was saying that he had a lot of issues, and like this was the first time in his whole career that Brady had been told that he wasn't doing well. And then he had the whole I thought it was 4th down play. So he also had a lot of low moments, but of course he ended up as the winning. So no one really cared about all the low moments. But hopefully Dak will be able to string together a good year. Hopefully, I think for Dak and this team, at least winning a game or two in the playoffs. I think that would kind of change people's perception of this team. Like if they have a top 5 offense and top 15 defense, if they were to have that, and if they were to have a coach that could call plays and wouldn't call fake punts within your own 35-yard line, then I think that a lot they will gain a lot of respect, and hopefully will be able to just prove to people that last year wasn't who they really are, and it was all just having a bad year. Because other teams have had bad years too, and then they'll come back and be great. So but it'll be interesting to find out. But that's my spiel on why I picked Dak over Brady. Now, if this year, for any reason, if Brady were to have a way better season than Dak, then this time next year, my top 10 quarterback rating will be very different. But for right now, even given him being injured, I still think that this point, right now, he's better. So
that's what you got.
I
That
think,
about it. Okay.
yeah.
Well, that was a really really good argument. Very good. You almost had me there. If I was, if I was someone else, I would have probably agreed with you. Unfortunately, I am not someone else.
Okay.
But I mean, you made a lot of really good points. I'm going to try and go through them the best I can. I know you said a lot. Just stop me if it's something you didn't say.
Yeah,
Let me start from
the biggest issue, I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the biggest issue with this is that Dak hasn't played half the amount of years that Brady has, and Brady, even though I think that both you and I could say he's past his prime.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's
I will not. Yeah, I'm not going to sit up here and say he's in his prime at 44. However,
Dak hasn't even hit his prime yet.
His arm strength is still. The thing with a quarterback is if you still have arm strength, you can play as long as you want. As soon as that arm strength goes down, as we saw with Philip Rivers, it's going to be a lot harder to
Ben
make
Roethlisberger
throws. And I mean, Drew Brees more than Ben Roethlisberger. I could say a lot about Ben Roethlisberger and why that offense wasn't very successful later on. But just to stay on topic, let me start from the beginning where you talked about their wins at the beginning of your career. I will actually agree in a sense with your point of Brady had the better coaching staff. Of course, he had the better coaching staff. That's a given for any quarterback. If you're not like unless you're with the Chiefs, maybe not the Chiefs, but I mean, I could argue that Steelers head coach is a very good head coach. He would be a good coach to play under Bill Belichick, obviously. Sean Payton. Andy Reid, just those are all great coaches to play for.
Sean McVay.
Sean McVay. The Cowboys have not had a good coach since Bill Parcells.
Yeah,
I've
actually met Bill Parcells. He grew up in my town, but that's another story for a different day.
Yeah, that would be for a happy show. But yeah, so obviously I agree with you on that. But I will say though, here's what I would say to counter your argument, just for the sense of this being a debate topic.
Oh, of course.
The NFL has changed quite a bit since when Brady started as a quarterback and from when Dak started. And back in the early 2000s, the NFL was nowhere near the passing heavy league it was today. So, also, the Patriots were a run-first football team. Back then, I believe they still had Marshall Faulk, like an older Marshall Faulk on their team. And he was their main bell cow back. And they were running through very similar to how Dak's first year, where they ran the ball through Zeke and ran Zeke kind of into the ground. And I don't think Zeke has really fully recovered from that 2016 year.
I don't blame him.
But And just it's hard to rank to talk about interceptions because um Dak's interception totals are going to be already more down just because they're a run heavy football team, especially that first year where his
Yeah,
interceptions
like
only I think 4 or
four.
5 because he wasn't throwing the ball very much. Um, I do think, however, next year the interceptions will go up just because they're going to be very pass heavy. But
I hope not. I
yeah,
think that's
I
the
hope
pass heavy. I hope that they run, but I do agree that they will have
yeah.
more interceptions.
I'm in the few category that I would rather Dak Prescott to throw less and the Cowboys to run more. Because I believe that the Cowboys are at their best when they're running the football and chewing the clock and the clock. Because just to go, I mean, it's very similar to what they did in 2014 with Romo. They handed it off to Murray. They used their offensive line, their big offensive line to their advantage. They got close to third and manageable, play action, or and let Romo manage on third down and at the end of the game. But I think in this league to be able to be a pass heavy team, your quarterback has to be a consistent quarterback throughout the game. And that's my only huge issue with Dak and why I wouldn't put him in a top 5 and I would put Brady in the top 5. With Brady, I know what I'm going to get. He's going to be ready. He's going to be ready at the pregame. He might turn the ball over more, but he's going to be ready and he's going to win those big important games. I don't know if Dak can win those big games yet. So that's why I would put Brady at 5, especially since he hasn't aged like Drew Brees or Big Ben or Philip Rivers as that we know of. He could walk out there week 1 and look completely horrendous and I would say, "You know what, you're right. You got me. Dak's better." Blah blah blah. But as of right now today, um I I can't I can't go to sleep knowing that I put Dak Prescott, who is yet to prove whether or not he's, healthy and can play, over someone who um, just basically shut up all the critics and said, "Hey, I'm not washed up. New England was just a bad situation. I got out there and now I'm a Super Bowl champion." Also, just another thing, just a quick thing before we move on. Um, like he just went to a new team and won a championship,
Yeah, it
which
was
is
a really good
very
team. It
a
was
really
even a good
good
team
team.
when Jameis Winston was there. He just
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah, a
throw.
really good team. And just I know you were talking about his coach was crapping on him. He got that from Bill Belichick in private, for sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't think he's never been publicly, and I
no,
just think that was a little bit of a um. Bruce Arians was just trying to motivate his quarterback, and they got that figured out in the on the bye
yeah,
week, and they were such a better football team going forward. But yeah, I take Brady because I know what I'm going to get out of Brady every snap, and I don't really know what I'm going to get out of Dak every snap at that point. And my top 5 quarterbacks are based on the players that I know are going to give me,
okay,
you know, all pro style quarterback play.
okay.
And Dak can give all pro quarterback style. Don't get me wrong, because he's done
Yeah, no,
it.
I know.
But I don't want that all pro style quarterback in the fourth quarter when they're down by like 18 points.
Okay. So can I just say one thing and then we can move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would you agree that Russell Wilson starts off the year hot and then kind of dwindles as the year goes on?
Yes, because I did say that last show. Yes,
But do you have Russell in your top 5? You did. You had him at 3, I
I
think.
do. I do. The only difference is I'm talking about in game. I'm not talking about like total seasonal stats. I'm just talking about in game. And the problem with Seattle is just I don't think they're just a very good football team in general. But I think Russell Wilson does a really good job of masking how bad they really are.
Yeah.
And then just by the end of the year, you're just so burned out, you just kind of fall flat on your
Hmm.
face.
I have a
But
lot of, I have a few issues with Russell, but I still think that he's a great quarterback. my main issue is that I feel like people are still judging him when he made the Super Bowl and when Seattle was a dynasty. Because I think you and I can both agree that that defense carried him when he was a young quarterback.
Yeah.
And
There
so did
Wilson's
Lynch.
yeah, Wilson's job back then was, hey, manage the game and get some first downs.
And
That
he
was his
never won an
job.
MVP, right? He never won an MVP.
He has not won an
No.
MVP because he was beaten out by Mahomes and Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson. So I'm not going to
So
hold that against him.
yeah.
If Lamar Jackson and Mahomes didn't exist,
Mhm.
then he would have won 2 MVPs.
Because he also was the head to win last year, but then he kind of like fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel if I feel like Dak gets too much hate, and I think Russell, who is a great quarterback, I don't think that he has gotten enough um like hits. He hasn't gotten enough hate for not being the same quarterback as he was, or not giving Seattle the same, not basically not bringing Seattle to giving them a ring, because he has DK Metcalf, who overratedly people put him as a top 5 wide receiver. Tyler Lockett, who can run past anyone. They have solid running backs. He never had a good offensive line.
I think
So
I think Seattle's current problem is their offensive line. And I think they may have addressed that. I'm not sure. But it's all about giving your quarterback protection.
I don't think they've done anything big since they traded no the last I got it confused, but I think the last big offensive line trade that they did was when they traded for Jimmy Graham and they got rid of their stud center. I
Oh,
thought the
that
trade
was
went the
dumb.
other way, but
Well, that was a boneheaded move by them.
yeah, it was.
But yeah, it's just last quick thing before we go.
Yeah.
Gosh, what did you say? Let's see. I went through the stats and difference of play, difference of game plan. I went through.
We went through it all because I didn't have that much because it's kind of hard to career wise, because obviously career wise Brady is much better, but right now it's just hard to like if you it's hard to find, because if you were to find 5 of Brady's years, you could definitely find 5 years of Brady where he just where Dak couldn't even shine his shoes. Like
Yeah,
he
actually,
couldn't
hold
touch
on
him.
one sec. Okay. Let me just pull up. So 2007, we all know that year. That was the year of the 16-0 year.
But they lost
Which, by the
to
way, brings me
Eli.
back to my
Yes.
weekly thank you, Eli Manning, for saving us from a perfect season from Tom Brady. You are a true cherished treasure, Eli
Patience,
Manning.
Saint. And hopefully Brady can stop.
Thank you for your Twitter. Also, if anyone doesn't follow Eli Manning on Twitter, you should follow him on Twitter because he's pretty funny.
Did you see him and Peyton are gonna be doing Monday Night Football now?
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is so incredible.
If I
That makes
read
me
that
so
right, then I
happy.
think that's what it is.
That makes me so happy. But yeah,
But
just 2000, just really quickly, based on 2000, that's not right. Oh, that's playoffs. I'm like, what the heck is this? Yeah, 2007. Just this is the first year that they were a pass heavy team. First
okay.
year, Randy Moss special. 69% completion, 4,800 yards, 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions.
You said what 60 what percentage?
69% completion, 50 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 300 yards a game. That's the best Tom Brady you're going to get. Just
I I don't think Dak has ever gotten 69. He might be close to 65, 66, 67. But I think you and I could both make a case that Dak, out of all the quarterbacks, Dak is the biggest threat to the breaking. He's gonna break Tony Romo's record for Dallas, and he's also
Oh,
gonna
I
break.
mean, absolutely, because he's going to play double the years of Tony. Knock on wood. The
No,
problem with
I
Romo's.
mean single season. I mean single season like
Oh,
yards,
yeah, probably. Yeah,
and
probably. The
then
problem
he'll
with
also he has the best chance to beat the yard record, like breaking 5,000 and securing the spot for the most yards ever in a season.
I mean, there's a ton of quarterbacks right now who could break that record, and who knows, they might just break each other's record for the next 5 or 6 years. But because like the
It'll
NFL
be him and Mahomes.
and I would say Herbert too.
Well,
Herbert, Allen,
Herbert has to
um,
get some solid wide receivers first.
that's okay. They're coming. Trust me.
Okay.
But
Have you talked
anyway,
to Herbert?
I
Are you
talk
and
I
him good
talked to him.
friends?
I look. I have, like I said, I have everyone's number.
I'm gonna have
I
to get
talked
on
to
that.
I talked to Herbert. I talked to Jerry sometimes. I talked to Aaron.
Is that one of the perks that Baylor provides? I'm gonna have to get on that plan. I'm gonna have to talk to somebody about that.
Yeah, it just I have quite the only person I don't really talk to is Dak. I don't know why. It must be because I criticize him on this show.
Dak
But
is doing mattress commercials and jean commercials, so I
yeah,
don't even think he'd have time to answer your phone call.
yeah, probably not. Um, gosh, what was I gonna say? Oh, yeah. So the 2007 Brady, I'm not saying we're gonna see that from him again because I don't think that he's
I
gonna do
hope
that.
not.
But
I hope not.
I'm just saying with Evans, Godwin, and Antonio Brown, especially Antonio Brown, second full year, I think you could get if you know if he's right and healthy and the arm is there, you could see like uncharted territory.
Guess I don't think
And the Bucks are
Antonio
going to be
Brown
hard to
is
stop.
gonna touch anywhere near his prime, but he's not even gonna be the number one option because Mike Evans and that wide receiver that they re-signed, I forget, Godwin,
Godwin.
will be a number one, number two, and they have like 17 tight ends that can catch better than Bryant, and they also have Leonard Fournette. No, sorry, not Bryant, Brown, and they also have Leonard Fournette. So I think that they'll be. I don't know how productive Brown will be able to be, but is that all you wanted to say, or do you still want to say something, or do you want to move on to the next topic?
Let's move on.
Okay, so for the next topic, we kind of just want to say. I know we talked about this in other episodes. We kind of wanted to say how we feel Dallas is going to do division wise. I'm gonna give my predictions, and I talked to Ray earlier, and Ray's gonna give a whole bunch of stats that all of you are gonna be on the edge of your seats for.
Yep.
So
Great
I
stats.
believe that Dallas. I'm gonna say Philadelphia will be fourth in the division. Unless I've heard that they may trade for Watson. If they trade for Watson, Ray and I will have another show, and we can.
If they trade for Watson, Dallas could be in serious trouble.
Yeah.
But that's another story for another day.
Yes. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But given Philly's roster today, I don't think unless Devonta Smith is like Megatron with numbers, I don't think they're gonna have any chance of beating Dallas, Giants, or the Washington two times apiece. I think Dallas will be in contention with obviously Washington and the Giants. I don't think that it would take a strong argument to realize that Dallas has the best offense. And a report came out from ESPN. They did their 2021 offensive weapons rank. And who do you think was number one?
The Bucks.
Who was number two?
I actually saw this. I know this list.
Okay.
I think it went Bucks, it went Cowboys, it went I know Tennessee was on there.
Tennessee was 3, and then
Yeah,
Chicago was.
Tennessee was. Chicago was 4.
Sorry,
I would
Cleveland.
lost my
Cleveland.
mind.
Cleveland. I got them confused, but Cleveland. So I think so. Dallas is the best offense. New York has Giants have the best secondary. It'll be very hard to. I feel like for both of those games against the Giants, if Dak can just not throw the ball to any of our wide receivers deep and just keep it in Zeke's hands and Tony Pollard's hands, I will be very, very happy with that.
Now that's an idea and a really good state of mind to have. Great
Yeah.
idea. I'm glad you are coming back to my side of the coming back. You're kind of sometimes here's how I could visually paint this picture. If we have a number line and there's a super objective and a completely over the edge, we would have Skip Bayless over the edge on the left, and then we'd have, I don't even know who could totally be an objective fan of a team, but some perfect objective fan. So sometimes Owen teeters a little bit more to the left, but today he's been quite in the middle with his, we need to run the football, we need to not throw as much. Great work.
Thank you. But
Great
on the
work.
other
Continue.
hand, going up against Washington, Dak should only throw the ball because I don't think that any of the cornerbacks could catch a cold. I don't even know. So we talked. Rayon talked about this earlier. They signed the cornerback from Cincinnati, and let's say that Jackson feels like Deion Sanders when they play when Dallas goes to Washington, and let's say on the off chance that Amari Cooper didn't eat his Wheaties that day, so William Jackson locks him down.
Or just forgot that he was a receiver because he was on the road. You know what happens when he's on the road.
So let's say that William Jackson stops Amari. I find it very hard to believe that they're going to be able to find 2 people to cover Gallup and Lamb. And even if that happens, just put Tony Pollard on a slot and have some slow linebacker go up against him. So, and if thankfully we don't play we don't play Washington until late in the year. So hopefully by then Zeke will be like 2016 Zeke or something close to it. Because I haven't seen Zeke on a breakaway run in a very, very long time. So hopefully by then this offense will have come into its own and we'll be able to go up against this front seven. But it's obviously we're obviously going to be a better team going into Washington than we are going to be going into Tampa. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. But if I were to give a prediction for 1 through 4, I think 4 is going to be Philadelphia. 3 is going to be the Giants. I don't think that Daniel Jones is going to be able to take this team to where they need to be. I also don't know how healthy Saquon's going to be. Number 2, I think it's going to be Dallas, but I think they're going to be an above 500 team. So hopefully they can, if they can split with Washington, that's a win. Hopefully
I agree with that.
They'll be above 500. Hopefully they can get one of those wild card spots, and then Washington will be a number 1 because people have to remember that last year. I think we can say that Dallas's team this year will be very different than they were last year. And I don't think besides quarterback that Washington will be a much better team than they were last year. And I think they only had maybe 2 or 3 more wins. And we could both agree that the coaching staff was way better in Washington than it was in Dallas. So I think it's a good thing for Dallas that even though they were way worse than Washington, they still were only within 2 to 3 games with them while losing both games to them. But I do think that objectively, Washington will win the division. But bias, Dallas will win. But I'm going to be objective. I want to be in Ray's good graces today. So I think that they will win. I don't think Fitzpatrick will play the whole year. I think I think he's going to do what he did a few years ago in Tampa. He's going to start off strong, and then he's going to fall off a cliff, and they're going to have the quarterback that played for them in the playoffs kind of wheel it
Mhm.
on out. I forget his
Mhm.
name. But yeah,
Heineke,
the Heineke.
Taylor
Yeah,
Heineke.
that's my prediction. What about yours, Ray?
Well, um, yeah. So I think what was surprising to me is when I was going through my stats, a lot of these NFC East teams are very similar when it comes to turnovers. Like they all force a similar amount of turnovers. So um, that means the Eagles do have a pretty. Their defense is still semi intact. I don't know exactly who they traded away in the off season, but I do think the Philadelphia Eagles defense will be something to watch out for. I mean, especially with division games, you don't know what you're going to get, and it's always going to be competitive. So we can't. I don't think we can really just pencil those in for 2 wins. Because who knows? Maybe Jalen Hurts might be the second coming of Warren Moon or something. If you know who that is.
I do. I don't. I just don't think it'll happen. Because going into his rookie year, Dallas's defense was trash, and he still threw 2 picks to Diggs, and he still looked like he had no idea what was going on. So
Yeah.
unless Smith makes him elevates his play that much, but or the kid from TCU hopefully doesn't have a lot of injuries. But I didn't like him. One of the biggest reasons why I hate Hurts is because he destroyed Baylor's hopes and dreams of making the college playoffs.
Because he was a decent quarterback, but
I don't think that I don't think he'll be a starter in this league.
yeah. I like I don't think he's the real deal, but
No.
I still want to give him a little bit of grace.
Yeah.
I would like to see him play a full season, which I believe is what we're going to see unless the Eagles do sign Deshaun Watson, and I don't even think Deshaun Watson will be allowed to play this year, so that won't even matter. But
Probably be on the exempt list unless all of the women deny it happened. But I won't cut you off anymore. I don't want you to have to make a tally list anymore.
yeah, uh, yeah, but so yeah. I want to give him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Let him play. Let me judge him based on his play. Um, yeah, but yeah. So yeah, I think the Eagles will definitely just like the Cowboys have to be ready to play Philadelphia. Because Philadelphia does have some weapons. Miles Sanders, Devontae Smith. I don't even know if Jalen Reagor is really considered a weapon because I haven't really seen him play very much. But who knows? He could be better under not Hallie Roseman. Whoever their coach, Sarkeesian, I think is his name. That might not even be right. Whatever, figure it out eventually in the show. But the new head coach, maybe he'll be better with the new head coach.
Isn't it Stefanski or no?
Yeah, Stefanski, that's who it is. Yeah, it's like Kevin Stefanski or something.
Yeah, Kyle, Kevin, either one.
Yeah, but yeah, just kind of watch out for Philly. But I do think that Philly will end up in the fourth spot just because they're just kind of they're not that good of a football team, and I don't think their head coach is really qualified to be a head coach based on his press conferences. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google his press conferences. They're pretty pathetic.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember that.
moving on to the other teams. I'll talk about Dallas last, just because I mean everyone probably knows about Dallas's woes on defense. But I'll start with the football team. Washington, we all know what their defense is. They're very deep in the front seven. They have a lot of really solid players. Chase Young, second year. Montez Sweat still there. Kerrigan still there. Um,
Kerrigan's in Philadelphia.
Kerrigan was traded to Philadelphia. Um,
Was he traded? Either one. He was traded or they signed him. I think they signed him, but I might be wrong.
yeah, besides the point, they're still deep. Jonathan Allen, maybe is that his name? Jonathan Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there. He's a good player. And then there's another guy who came out who will probably start this year, but he came off the bench and he was very effective in that second unit on the defensive line. I've yet to figure out who his name was. I tried to figure that out before the show, but to no avail. I just know I heard his name and saw him get a sack in the playoff game when they played the Bucks. But I think their defense, their secondary is okay, not bad, not great. But I think that really what will come down to their team is whether or not they could get good quality production from their offense. And their offense is a very balanced offense. Fitzpatrick is a quality quarterback. Whether or not, I mean, he has his turnover problems and issues, but he deserves to, be where he is. And McLaurin, he's a speedster, can run good routes, get open. They have Curtis Samuel, another speedster, gadget guy. They could use anywhere on the field. Cowboys are going to have I predict the Cowboys will have a really tough time matching up with Curtis Samuel.
You put Micah Parsons on him, and your issues are all saved. You either put him or I wish I've said this, I think, in every single episode. If they should do what they did when they played the Saints a few years ago, just have Jordan Lewis. He can be benched for every single game besides the games where they have, like you said, a gadget running back, and just have him spy him, and it'll be all okay.
Yeah, the problem is, though, Curtis Samuel's not a running back. He's a wideout. I'm just saying they could line him up at running back and reverse and just like he can play anywhere on the field.
He's from Carolina, right?
Yeah, Carolina. He can play anywhere on the field. And he had some excitement in Carolina last year. But then also they signed the Minnesota receiver, or maybe he wasn't from Minnesota, but they signed another speedster from another college speedster to pair up with McLaurin to give them some more deep threat and give McLaurin a break. And also they got Gibson running the football. And I think Gibson, I mean, it's hard. It was hard. I think Alex Smith did his job last year the best he could. But I definitely think with Fitzpatrick at quarterback, it's going to balance out that offense a little bit more. They're going to be able to run the football more effectively. They'll be able to play action. There'll be a little bit more balance and harder to stop. I'll give my rankings at the end after I go through the Giants. But moving on to the Giants, I think the Giants have the most solid defense from top to bottom. I think Joe Judge has proven he can be a head coach just based on how he improved that defense in 1 year. I think they're going to be the most fundamentally sound just based on where he came from. Belichick, they're going to be the most sound. They're going to be good on the line, linebackers, corners, and also their offense is a lot more boosted. Saquon's coming back. They have Galladay, still have Shepard. They
they signed a speedster. Drafted a speedster.
Yeah, Tony. They have Tony, Darius Slayton, who they have a lot of good receivers. They have a lot of good. They have that number one Galladay, and then they have a bunch of other receivers who can play anywhere. So they're very deep at receiver. And I think this is definitely a prove it year for Daniel Jones. And this is the first year they've kind of been like, all right, we got you your weapons, go out there and prove it. I think they'll be more dangerous on offense. And if they can just get top 15 quarterback play from Daniel Jones, I think they could easily win this division. Just if they could just get him to do his job and not turn the ball over, which has been an issue for him, then they could easily win this division. But yeah, going on to the Cowboys, definitely the most talented on offense, no doubt. Best quarterback by far in this division. Um, their only question is whether or not their offensive line can get through the whole year. Their offensive line is a lot older. Tyron Smith, whether while he's 30, he's got back issues and missed a lot of time last year. Lyle Collins coming off that not replacement, but like the hip surgery. We don't know what he's going to look like. Zach Martin's getting older. Injuries come with age. Really, the only young guy is, like you said, Connor Williams and Biotish at center. And I saw a stat somewhere that he was like ranked 31 at center. Something like he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't like based on some that he
I'll
wasn't.
have to look at.
He wasn't that impressive. It might not be like 31. It might not be 31. It could be like, but I just know it wasn't that impressive. But I do expect him to improve.
I read something where Connor Williams was like the 30th guard or something like that. I think Biotish struggled. Every rookie center is, but I think for a while Pro Football Focus had him up there as one of the better ones. But I'll have to look at it after the show.
Yeah, I just know that they didn't grade him that high. Because I either saw a stat or I heard a stat from like some video or something. But yeah, so and then also the defense. They definitely addressed the defense in the draft, but who knows? The defensive coordinator was with the Falcons, and we saw what happened with the Falcons last year. Just a quick emphasis. We don't have to really go into that. We know what he did in Seattle. Just an emphasis of recent history of what the defense looked like. But yeah, I think Micah Parsons will be a huge addition. He's going to be that guy on our defense that we've needed a ton. Like we needed since DeMarcus Ware left, which is that unstoppable force who could do basically whatever you wanted. On from the defensive line or at the linebacker position. He can like tackle, he can get you sacks, he can pressure the quarterback. He's going to be that DeMarcus Ware type player that we've really needed on defense. And this is what I told Owen last year, and I will say it again. The Dallas Cowboys' success is going to come down to whether or not they can rush the passer and get to the opposing team's quarterback. Because our defense is still young. Our secondary is not very fundamentally sound at this point. So if we cannot pressure the quarterback, it's going to be a long, long year for this team because we're going to be in a ton of shootouts and which means we'll probably have to be coming from behind based on recent history from our offense. So I think that's going to be another thing for our defense. And I think, yeah, I just hope that we can get some pass rush because we haven't gotten any pass rush for like 10 years. Like it's been pretty horrendous what the Dallas Cowboys have done with their defensive line.
There hasn't been pass rush since DeMarcus Lawrence's contract year. And my dad always preaches this to me. He always says players have their best years on contract years because that's when it means the most, and they kind of just like don't do the greatest the next few years, but then as soon as that payday comes, they're like the best ever.
Mm-hmm.
But is that give me your 1 through 4 ranking, and then we'll get into our last three topics of the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all I got for based on just personnel and stat wise. I'm going to. So I have. This is actually a change from my earlier. I think our first episode where my first episode. I'm going to take the Giants to win this division, just because I trust. And this is crazy to say out loud, but I think you would probably agree with me. I will trust. I am more likely to see a consistent and a better, and I'm more likely to see Daniel Jones be more consistent and take better care of the football than I am to see Ryan Fitzpatrick
Oh,
take care of
100%.
the football. I think if Fitzpatrick has a consistent year where he doesn't turn the football over for Washington, their offense will be elevated so much, and their defense being their defense, they'll win the division. They'll definitely be a favorite to win the division over the Giants and with the Cowboys. But I'm just going to say right now, I'm going to take the Giants to win the division. At like about 10 or 11 wins. I think that's
Oh, wow.
reasonable for this division. And then have Dallas and Washington very similar at about the 9-7. Not well, I guess that's not like the
9-8.
like the 9-8, 8-9, somewhere there. Down in the 7 wins max. So that's my NFC East.
Okay.
And who knows? Maybe the NFC East maybe the Cowboys get in the postseason at 9-8. Who knows?
Who
But
knows?
I'm gonna have the Giants at winning this division today as training camp is starting.
Okay. So now we're gonna be taking a turn into kind of like, for me, defensive, and then I'll pose the same question to Ray. Ray, there's a lot of questions around this team as a whole. Who do you think is the most overrated player on this team?
That's a very good question. There are a lot of players I could pick.
Okay, yes, there are.
I mean, I could even pick the quarterback. I'm not going to do that because he's not the most overrated. But as much as I criticize his performance and say that his stats are a little bit fluctuated or misleading, he's not the most overrated player on this team, and he's actually a very key piece to this football team.
I have to record that. I'm making that my ringtone.
You should. You should put it on make your ringtone. So when I'm tearing into him all season after a poor game, you go back and be like, oh well, at least he said this preseason.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go with Jalen Smith because it's well known that he's not a good player on this team. I'm going to say the most overrated football team is
It's kind of hard because everyone hates this team and everyone's so low on them. So in my opinion, every player is either properly rated or severely underrated. I think it's a crime that I think ESPN had a list of players.
You go first. I want to hear what you have to say.
No, sorry, you were cutting out. I didn't. That's why I said something. I think it's a crime that.
Yeah, you go first.
You go.
You tell your most overrated player first.
So, two things. So one, I think it's a crime that I think ESPN or something had a list of second-year receivers that are going to make the hump and that are going to be really good, and CD wasn't on that list. I don't know if they were saying that because they already think he's really good or if they just think he's not going to be good, but it wasn't a good look for them. But for me, my most overrated, you just said that he's not. I think Jalen is. This team's so young that it's kind of hard to select someone, but I think Jalen thinks that he's so good, and I was a fan of his when he played well in 2018, but last year, I think this is the sole thing that is the big difference between Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch. They were both asked the question, do you the defense was bad? Do you think how much did you have to do with it? Jalen said, check the tape. And Leighton said, I'm working to be better for myself and for this team. Also, a lot of people, I got into a Instagram comment battle with someone talking about Jalen, and
I love those.
Yeah, no, they're the best. And people, if you don't watch Cowboy games and if you just look at the stat sheet, then you're gonna think Jalen was one of the best players in the whole league because he led the team in tackles and I think was top 5 in tackles for the whole NFL. But there were so many times where he would be in the wrong hole, where he'd be running around. Like you and I could have done a better job than he could have. But it just that's the easy pick. But Amari, people are kind of like you either hate him or you love him. I like him a lot. I know you and I have had a lot of talks about that. So I don't think he's overrated. I just you could
Yeah.
say Tyron Smith, but no one really says that he's that good anymore. But I'm interested to hear who you have to, and then we can kind of battle it out.
Yeah, quickly on the Jalen Smith thing. Yeah, Jerry Jones is going to execute his will according to his plan, and unfortunately for Jalen Smith, he is not a part of Jerry Jones's plan. I don't think moving forward, especially if he's going to play the same way he did this last year. But yeah, I'm gonna go. I've been battling in my head about whether or not to say Zeke or Amari, and I'm just gonna ride with Amari on one sole purpose. One sole purpose. I can, as much as I will hate on Zeke, the running back position, like I said to you before the show, or maybe I did during the show, I forget. It's been a long hour. The running back position, unless you're Barry Sanders, you need to have a decent offensive line to be successful. And especially with us running out 4 different quarterbacks last year and our offensive line being banged up, Zeke still managed to get his 987 yards, even with his ridiculous Mickey Mouse buns. So I'm just going to give him a pass and say, whatever, good job. But and when I'm gonna go with Amari Cooper. I know he had a decent year this year, but I don't think his yards really benefited the team in any way. Because he got his yards, but he didn't score touchdowns very much, and he wasn't there. And just if you look at him with the Raiders, he was a very inconsistent quarterback with Derek Carr, and I think Derek Carr is a decent enough quarterback to be able to make a receiver look good. But like Dak makes Amari look better than Amari makes Dak look better today at this time. Obviously, you could say, well, Amari came in 18 and Dak looked better, but the receivers that year were pretty pathetic. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But yeah, Amari's track record, I don't have the stats on it, but you could anyone could look them up. Go look at his at home games versus his away games. Being a number 1 wide receiver on a football team, you have to be consistent on the road and at home, and he hasn't done that yet. And like I said, I think CD is going to be the best receiver on this team, and like easily by far, he's going to be the number 1 option. And I just think Amari Cooper has a lot of dead. He's just he has that big contract, that number 1 receiver contract, and there are just so many other receivers in this league that I would rather have than Amari Cooper. And I think that like the Cowboys, if they wanted to, they could move on from him sooner than later and just be totally okay with Amari, with Michael Gallup and CD and Zeke and Dak moving forward. Because I don't absolutely go ahead.
No, finish what you were gonna say, and then I'll go.
Let's see. They could have the same amount of success. Blah 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 blah. Yeah. Yeah. Just based on consistency. I know. Like. The running back position, so much more wear and tear on your body as you get older. And Zeke's done well enough. His 5 year has been consistent enough. His first 5 years as a running back to not get the most overrated title on this team. And Amari Cooper has just been way too inconsistent, especially for what he's being paid. And even though he's not getting any really recognition on any, top 10 lists or like very much recognition at all. But however, the Cowboys, like you said, they have that top two offensive weapons at receiver. And I think the Cowboys on offense are just a little bit overrated, just in the sense that you don't know what you're going to get from Amari Cooper, and that's what I'm taking. That's why I'm saying he's overrated.
All right, give me 1 second to pull up something. Okay. So let's say that you run the Cowboys and you move on from Amari. That means you're gonna have a lot of dead cap. So let's say you have Gallup as your number two, CD as your number one. Which one of these wide receivers are you okay with starting? Semi Foco, who's a rookie. Are you comfortable with Cedric Wilson starting? Are you comfortable with Noah Brown starting? Are you comfortable with Malik Turner starting? Are you comfortable with TJ Vasher, who's a rookie, starting? Like I understand you don't think Amari's good, but I think it's as good as his money's worth. But I think that we're very lucky situation to have three above average wide receivers. And you think you think that obviously 2018 we didn't have Amari, Dak wasn't the greatest. So I think I'm in the interest of giving Dak the maximum amount of weapons, because if you take away his weapons, then it's like, oh well, he should have more people to throw the ball to. But if you give him the most, then it's kind of on Dak to like do what he has to do, and he's held accountable. I I like Amari. I think it's hard for any wide receiver to be good when you have four different quarterbacks throwing to you, especially when you have a rookie quarterback throwing to the only throws sidearm. And then I think his best pass of that game against the Eagles was a 10-yard throw to Amari. I don't think that Amari has the beast inside of him. Obviously, I don't know him obviously, but given how I've seen the games, I don't think that he has like the beast. Like I'm just gonna like be better than you. I think that he is one of the he's definitely a top 5, top 7 route runner in this league, and I think that I I think route running can only help you. Like if Dez early in his career, if he was motivated enough to work a few off seasons on route running, then he would still be on the Cowboys.
I
If he
agree
was an
with that
elite,
statement.
so Amari, when Dak was there, Amari was great. He had one hand catches. He was a big part of this offense. But then as soon as Dak left, everyone wasn't as good. Heck, even CeeDee Lamb didn't look as good as he did in the first few games. Gallup didn't really do that well. The only person that kind of did well was Tony Pollard, and I think he had some big runs. So next upcoming year, if Amari stinks, okay, I'm on the same exact boat as you. But I think it's hard to judge anyone on this past year, especially when your quarterback wasn't there. And I don't think you can be judged when your quarterback is Garrett Gilbert or any other of the plethora of quarterbacks that they had.
I believe Amari actually had a decent game when Garrett Gilbert was playing, but we can check
Well,
those
I'm
numbers
just
on that.
saying.
Yeah, and I think what you're missing, I'm not really criticizing him for his play this last season. I believe I did even say that I'm not going to criticize you when you're having 4 different quarterbacks throwing to you. The only thing I said about that season is that I don't think his yards were very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Like they weren't very impactful yards. But
Okay.
most of my points came from the years prior.
2019.
Yeah, the years prior where he did earn that $100 million contract. Those were the years that he quote unquote earned his money. And
Okay.
just looking back on those years, he was way too inconsistent while playing at home and on the road. And to be a number 1 receiver in this league, you need to be consistent in both places. And I just think let me just say this also. I'm not saying he's an overrated based on the world, because I don't think it's very easy to choose an overrated player in this team based on the world, because like they're not really, like you said, on any stat pages or anything other than the
Yeah.
quarterback. But based on the opinions of the fan base, I think there are a lot of fans in this fan base that think Amari is like this great top 5 receiver.
He's
And this,
not
and
top 5.
well, they value him a lot more than he should be valued, which is what I'm saying. So that's why I'm saying he's an overrated player, because he's not a consistent receiver. But like I say for all my criticisms, if he were to go out there next year with Dak at quarterback, and he would produce in the red zone and get those touchdowns and actually contribute to the team, then I will come out here mid-season or in the next off season and be like, I was wrong, and he's a very valuable asset to this team, and we should keep him.
So if you're gonna judge him on that, if you're gonna judge that his yards weren't good, then you can also judge Gallup. You can judge Lamb, who I know you like Lamb. You can judge basically everyone on that team because they went from averaging 35 points to averaging less than 7.
Yeah, the difference though is Michael Gallup isn't the number. He's not getting paid $100 million. That's the difference.
Because
And you can't. The problem is you can't really say, "Oh, this guy is overrated," but then like Michael Gallup's overrated. Well, okay, then they can just get rid of him because he doesn't have a lot of cap hit to the team, and he's not getting paid as this great player. So the term overrated is not necessarily based on their performance. It's more based on what the team is paying you and expect. That's kind of where I'm making my point. I know Jalen Smith is not earning his money, but he's been terrible, and nobody really thinks of him that greatly. People like Amari and like praise Amari, so that's why I'm going with him more, in the sense of he's not a consistent player and he's getting paid to be a consistent player.
was Jared Goff worth the money that he got?
Absolutely not, but he's not on the Cowboys, so he's not really relevant.
He got that money because that's what the market is. Dak isn't. No quarterback is worth the amount of money that Dak got, minus Mahomes. They paid him that much because that's how much they had to pay him. When he was going and when he was going to be a free agent, Washington gave him a better contract. I would be scared to heck to have to play Washington with McLaurin and Amari. I wouldn't like that at all. But he stayed for less money, and
I would like to play Amari when he's coming to Dallas, because that would be a road matchup for him.
I think that I don't even know if he's gonna. I've heard that he'll be ready, but I don't think that he's gonna be in training camp for the first few weeks because of his ankle. So or his foot. I hope that his foot's like okay, but after every, I think what you and I should do after every single week is after every single like game, we should have one player who was like really good and one player that was really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready to move to the next segment, or do you want to talk more?
Just really quickly, your whole contract there, it's a market value. I agree with that assessment. Like, market value is going to be above the value of the performer unless you're a Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, etc. However, players are still going to be judged based on what they're getting paid to do, whether or not it's market value. And when you're getting paid at that century mark, you're expected to be, the number one receiver that you are, correct?
He's still top 15 in yards.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying I need him to produce at home and on the road this year for me to change my mind. Because if he
He's
goes
good
out
at
there,
home. It's just on the road where
yeah,
he's
if
not.
he goes out there and gets 1,000 yards receiving, but only 5 touchdowns, and his home averages are like double his road
Yeah,
averages, I'm just like, I can't be like, I'm like, what the heck are you doing? What are you eating? Like
yeah.
seriously, what are you eating before before road games?
Now, for all we know, he's had a lot of foot injuries. Like he could have had a healthy 3 game stretch at home and then nicked his foot. Like for the Jet game, he wasn't healthy for that game.
Okay, here's an example. Here's an example of one game before we move on. Just that kind of represents Amari Cooper, you could say. So Philadelphia, winner go home, division on the line. Amari Cooper literally did nothing that game,
Now to
and
the Dak.
exactly. But see, in this point, I can leave all of my Dak sucked that game out here because he is not. We're just going to focus on Amari because it's on the road. He's the number one receiver. He needs to make the play. On the last drive of the game, he was not in the field because Jason Garrett had benched him. Like
Yeah,
imagine playing so bad that Jason Garrett benched you.
yeah.
Like
Jason was not happy.
just put that in your just wrap your head around that. And also just the fact that game just left me in a black
Yeah,
hole
they
of
played a
rage, and like
practice squad team.
it left me in a black hole of rage and confusion. I'm like, how the hell did you just lose to the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah.
Like that, it just doesn't make any sense.
I know what you mean. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, but yeah, that's just an example of Amari.
Yeah,
Like
makes
if
sense.
I need him to show up in those moments when you need him because I don't want Dak throwing to Tavon Austin on the last drive of the game when I could have him throwing to Amari because the most wishy-washy, chill, relaxed head coach benched you.
Yeah,
Like
I get it. I get it. You ready to go on the next topic?
absolutely.
So ESPN, I don't know how half of them have their jobs, but every week they have to sprinkle in the Dallas Cowboys to get some revenue. So they did,
Every just really quickly, every show has to sprinkle the Dallas Cowboys
yeah,
in there because they're just so polarizing.
yeah. So they did a projected defense, and I think that they just carbon copied this right off their depth chart, like off of like other websites' depth chart, and that those make no sense. So I'm gonna read you this depth chart, and you're gonna tell me how bad this sounds.
Okay.
Left defensive end, D-Law. That's good.
Mhm.
Good job, ESPN.
Wait, what was it?
Defensive.
Wait. Hold on. I'm not really sure what I'm asking. Like what I'm doing.
It's a depth chart.
Okay, depth chart. Okay.
It's
All right.
ESPN's projected starting defensive lineup.
Okay. All right. Great.
Defensive tackle, Carlos Watkins. He was signed on March 18th.
No
Bad
idea
job.
who that player
ESPN.
is. No idea who that
Defensive
player is.
tackle, number 2, Tristan Hill.
Know who
Okay,
that is.
ESPN.
Why don't they start Gallimore?
Right defensive end, Gallimore. Very
Oh.
bad. He has never played defensive end a snap in his life. He's always been a defensive tackle. Very, very bad, ESPN. Atrocious, ESPN.
ESPN is not very masterful in their storytelling as of
No.
right now.
Linebacker Leighton, linebacker Micah, linebacker Smith. I don't think Smith will start. I think it'll be Keanu Neal. I think it'll be one of the Achilles brothers, like you've called them.
The Achilles brothers, my favorite part of this defensive team.
And then you have Diggs, who's gonna start. Joseph, I think it'll be cornerback number 1, Diggs. He'll play your number 1, the wide receiver. Cornerback number 2, Nashawn Wright, and then Joseph will go in the slot. Safety, they have Donovan Wilson. And the other safety, they have Reggie Robinson. I don't think Reggie Robinson's gonna start. I think the other, it wasn't Neal. Who was the other one? There was another guy from Atlanta that they signed. That it wasn't Neal. I forget what his name was. Gonna bother me, but he'll be the other other safety. I just don't understand how, even if you watched a second of the Cowboys, you would know that Gallimore was going up against the center. Gallimore is like 250 to 300 pounds. He's probably lighter than that, but just like looking at him, he's a big guy. I don't know how he would get around a tackle. I have no idea what they were thinking.
Yeah, I don't know what that.
Yeah,
I have
I just
no
wanted to
idea. I
bring
don't
some
know.
funniness to the show.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain that.
So, and then my last topic, and then if you want to talk about anything, you can. But Randy Gregory had a he talked to someone about about this past season, and he said that he felt like he was robbed because of the Dallas's like the defensive cord the people the Mike Nolan and his staff they favored Aldon Smith over Gregory. So I'm gonna read you some stats. Randy Gregory he played 25% of the snaps. Alden played 211 more snaps than Gregory did. I think,
Hmm.
yeah. Gregory had 15 solo tackles, 3.5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. Alden only had one good game. I think that was against Cincinnati, where we had like the fumble returned. He had one good game. Alden
Hmm.
had 31 solo tackles, 5 sacks, and 0 forced fumbles, and he might have had some other good stuff too. Well, good for him, but he didn't have he was not better than Gregory. So he gave a quote. Let me see if I can maneuver my. Yeah, he gave a quote. And he was saying he said I had my times when I was angry. I used to talk to Peter, my agent, about it, and the best thing I could do was just to go out there on the field with my plays they give me and make those plays worth it. I did that, but I truly felt like I was robbed of a year last year. And also the fact that Gregory didn't play more despite outperforming Alden Smith left Dan Quinn puzzled like it did many others. And here's what Dan Quinn had to say. I was surprised he didn't play more. I brought it up to Mike. He was at the top of the list for me as far as defining a role. His playing time is going to increase for sure. I think he's going to really take off this year. I love that. Randy, he's had a lot of his off-field issues, but when he's played, he's looked great. And
Yeah.
I think that because I think the biggest issue with DeMarcus Lawrence is that he had to be the starter, but he also had to play other roles too because there wasn't a solid defensive end to go in there and give him rest. So he had to be the starter, he had to be the star, and he also had to be the role player. All three. Because it's much because if he made a bad play, everyone else made a bad play. With Randy on the other side, with him and Randy, they'll be able to complement each other. And Randy's had a lot of good plays in the little amount of time that he's played. But it always bothered me that that Alden would play more than him. There was another guy, number 92, I forget his name. He had no business playing, and he played over Randy too. But I'm glad that Quinn is kind of saying that Randy is going to play, and hopefully it'll lead to success. But I think I'm really looking forward to Dan Quinn being our defensive coordinator.
Yeah. I that's I mean I guess that's good news just in the sense of Randy Gregory's talent. We know like what talent he has and what he can do. I just have a few things to say. Number one, I'd like to know what Mike McCarthy's explanation to why he wasn't playing. I'd like to know that.
It was Mike Nolan's decision. It wasn't his.
Well, as the head coach, you should have complete say over everything regarding your football team.
True.
So that's my one issue is why he didn't veto and say, look, we're getting more performance out of him than Aldon Smith. However, Aldon Smith, he I predicted about what he was going to do. I know not to throw my co-host under the bus, but he was telling last year he was telling me that Aldon Smith, was throwing people around in practice, think benching a ton, and he just kind of had a mediocre, decent year, maybe a little bit better than you'd think because he was out of football for forever, but still not a really huge contributor to the football team.
I'm also glad that they didn't re-sign him because he got detained. He was booked for, I forget for what, but he was in trouble with the law again. So I'm
Well,
happy that I have a suspicion that they knew something was up with him and they just didn't re-sign him and they just let Seattle sign him.
yeah,
But
but yeah, I think Randy Gregory's a decent football player or a good football player, and he's definitely a he can contribute to the defensive line. It just goes about to say I don't care who's starting as long as they can pressure the quarterback and get sacks. I don't care. They could bench DeMarcus Lawrence and throw in some guy they drafted, and if he's getting sacks and pressuring, I don't care. I just want them to get pressure on the quarterback. So if they can get pressure on the quarterback, they'll probably win a lot. So, but yeah, I'd like to hear what McCarthy had to say when Dan Quinn challenged him about Randy's playing time. Hear what he had to say.
I'm assuming we're gonna find out on August 10th when Hard Knocks is released. Because apparently they've been filming already.
Okay, yeah, maybe we will see that. But Jerry's gonna be the emphasis of that show again. And
I saw something where it said that it was pumping up the players to be better, which is all that I could ask for.
Oh, good. I like hyping up players to be better. That's good.
I think
very,
for
very
everyone,
good.
this is a very big prove it year for this team. Because in all honesty, if let's say this team wins 4 games, there'll be a new head coach, new defense, depending on how bad the defense is, maybe a new defensive coordinator, a new offensive coordinator, and this whole team will be cut, traded, sent to Cincinnati. Who knows? But it's gonna be a very different team.
If they go 4-12, I'd like
4-13.
If they go 4-13, I'd like to see Dak, Zeke, Amari all shipped on a boat to different teams around the NFL and just start
at that
from
point
scratch.
in time. Just draft Spencer Rattler, or draft the corner from LSU. That's the next Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey, good player. Last thing I want to mention, as a Cowboys fans, we feel entitled to mention the Packers every once in a while, just because of the suffering that they bring upon our franchise at certain parts of our lives. It was reported, I think today or yesterday, from Adam Schefter that the Packers offered Aaron Rodgers a max contract, and the contract would not only make him the highest paid quarterback this year, but also it'd be the highest paying contract in the history of the NFL. And Aaron Rodgers turned it down. And what that tells me is that it was never about any of the money that the Packers could offer. It was just about sending a message, and the message being, get me the hell out of Wisconsin and get me to somewhere I want to play, where I want to play and get more and have more say in how the team is run. Just really quickly before we sign off, what is the most likely landing spot for Aaron Rodgers?
Best fit or team most in want of a quarterback?
Most likely for him to end up. Just in general. Where do you think he's most likely to end up?
He's going to want weapons. So Denver, Philadelphia, if they can do something, maybe they could trade for him. I'd have to think. if it's just teams that don't have a star quarterback. So for whatever reason, if Washington doesn't like their quarterback, they could trade for him.
I could see Washington moving pieces on defense and having a weaker defense and having Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback.
Yeah. I'd have to look at all 30 teams and figure out who was in because I can't off the top of my head name all 30. So I'd
Yeah.
have to
So
look.
let me just name 4 spots that I think is possible. 1, Denver. I think
Yeah.
that's the best fit for him.
Obvious choice, yeah.
Best fit for him. I'm gonna go with Oakland. I think I could see him playing in Oakland. I'm gonna go with Washington, and then I'm gonna go with Indianapolis.
You think they just got Carson.
But I think if Indianapolis really, like, let's say Carson's sticking up to join in training camp and Aaron Rodgers is available, I could see them trading Carson Wentz to the Packers and
If the
another
Packers
piece and a few other pieces, maybe picks, maybe players, and bring Aaron Rodgers in.
the Packers won't want Wentz because they want Love. So they'd have to ship him somewhere else.
I mean, who knows if they're if they're bluffing with their desire to have Love start.
If they didn't want Love, then they'd be like Aaron. Like if they didn't want Love, then they would have drafted a wide receiver this past draft. They are confident in what Love can do, and they are trying to build around Love.
Well, I just think that the fact that they offered. By the way, this is not factual. I don't know if this is factual. It could be fake. But I think Schefter's
it was already confirmed. It was a 2-year deal.
Okay, it was confirmed. No. Okay, yeah. So I think the fact that they offered him that much money, it tells them that they would much rather have Aaron Rodgers playing than Jordan.
Who wouldn't? But your actions matter more than a contract. Like he had 2 drafts, and like we've said, they've always been like on the NFC Championship. Like they've always been one of the names of the teams to get there. They could have drafted a plethora of good wide receivers, but no, they drafted Jordan Love, a quarterback who had fell. Last year they could have drafted anyone basically besides who they drafted, and they drafted a cornerback. So I think that was kind of the nail on the coffin.
Yeah, I mean, it can't. The Packers' history has been not drafting round 1 talent for Aaron since for the last 12 years they haven't done that.
Yeah.
But like if they really were sold on Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers would already be gone. And I truly believe that if they were like, all right, you really want to leave, fine, like bye. We'll go with Jordan Love. But the fact that they offered him so much money tells me that they would still want Aaron playing at least one more year to give Jordan some more time to develop. Because from what the reports I heard, he was not very good last year in practice, and I don't know how much you can improve just by training camp, because he still has not seen any NFL snaps.
At least we're gonna have a preseason.
Yeah, Dallas, so
I think 3 or 4 other games are gonna be televised.
Well, I'd hope so. I'd hope they'd be televised in Texas.
Well, I mean, like nationally, because their first game is against the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I forget who that's against, but that's coming up in the next
against Pittsburgh.
2-3 weeks. Yeah, that'll be nice.
But yeah, just really quickly, I forgot to say this. I'm making one adjustment to my top 10. One adjustment to my top 10 quarterbacks. I'm moving Matt Ryan out and putting Ben Roethlisberger in because because he won. He made the postseason and they had a winning record. Hold on. I let you speak for 20 minutes at the beginning of the show. Hold on. Relax. Relax. He did enough. His stats, for one, did enough for him to prove he could still play. That's number one. Um, number two, their team was 8-8 when he came in. I believe they finished the year 12-4. So he came in and they were a better football team. Three, their running game was not very good. It was pretty pedestrian and pathetic. And I think that Najee Harris will improve their running game and open up their play downfield and give them a little bit more space for them to push the ball. Because their offense, whether it was a lot of side, short, quick passes, but I don't think they could really do very much of anything else because their running game was so pathetic. But I'm just going to put him at 10 because Matt Ryan, while he's still performed to his caliber of play, he hasn't really made much of a difference to his team's success the last few years. And I think just based on the last 2 years where Big Ben missed the entire year and they had 3 different quarterbacks and didn't make the postseason, but then Ben comes back at age 40 or 38 or 39 and has a pretty solid season and proves their win total by 5 games. I think if they can improve their running game and open up their passing game, I think that the Steelers will be a lot better football team than the 12-4 team that they were the last year. And like I said, I still can't put Dak in the top 10 based on his injury.
I don't think Ben's. I watched a few of their games, and I felt like Ben was pushing the ball, and he wasn't really that accurate. He couldn't really throw the ball that deep. But one of the biggest reasons why they even went 8-8 was because of their defense. I think also they had a really, really easy schedule. A really easy schedule.
I agree, and that's why their running game was very masked because of that easy schedule. But as soon as they played a team like Washington, even though Washington didn't have a very good quarterback, their defense was able to like completely shut down that running game, and their secondary was good enough to be able to know that, hey, they can't run the football, so we can just blanket these receivers and not have to worry about.
Did you watch a full regular season Ben Roethlisberger game?
I watched the full game against Washington.
Did you watch a game besides that? Did you watch the game against the Bengals where he looked like he was the worst quarterback alive? If the answer is no, then
I watched
after this,
the Cowboys game.
Okay, he was injured for a big part of that game. After this, I would say spend 30 to 40 minutes watching Ben Roethlisberger throws, and then next week we can come back and you can tell me why Ben Roethlisberger is not a top 10 quarterback.
I watched his postseason game against Cleveland, and I watched his game against Cleveland, and I think in that game gives me a lot more positivity for, even though they lost and he had a bunch of turnovers, it gives me some like confidence in his ability to still be able to throw the ball a little bit. Because I think at this point of his career, he's a better option arm strength based where Phillip Rivers was. And Phillip Rivers had that running game to balance out his inefficiencies as a passer going down the field. All I'm saying is if he could just get a little bit of run support on offense, their offense could be a little bit more pass, like vertical. Like they could be a little bit more of a passing threat vertically. I'm not saying they'll be a deep threat team because I agree with you. I don't think he could push the ball down the field like he could before. All I'm saying is they'll get a lot more of those 12-yard completions downfield, 15-yard completions downfield, even 20. Because, I mean, even if you're like 40, you still should be able to kind of throw the ball down the field 20 yards with ease, unless it's like an outside the numbers throw to the opposite side of the field. But I'm just saying if he could just get like 70 yards a game from Najee Harris next year, to where the opposing defense has to respect Najee Harris, I think his numbers will improve. Like the yards will go up and the touchdowns will be very similar. And I think his interception total will be very similar. But the game against the Browns, where he was forced to kind of throw the ball a little bit more down the field, he still made a lot of tight window throws. I remember one tight window throw where he hit Claypool, like kind of like a sideline throw where there was like one player behind him, one player in front of him, and he made like a perfect window throw. And also just like the I don't even know. The Steelers just having that weak schedule, they were just like no match roster wise for the Cleveland Browns, even though Baker Mayfield is like not even that good. But that's all I'm saying. If he can get a little bit run support, I think he's good enough to keep that top 10 spot for the entire year, especially if they make the postseason.
Cleveland was up 28-0 going into the second quarter. And now I know you and I have talked a lot about the Cowboys, obviously, and I can name a handful of games where the Cowboys were down less than 28 points. And the first thing you say when Dak has a good game is garbage time, garbage time, garbage time. And this is as garbage time as it gets if you're down 4 scores. Because the game, even if you go into the second quarter, it was 35-10. And then the third quarter, it was 35-23. And then the score ended 48-37. They were never up, which means that it was catch up.
The only reason I am bringing up that game is just to say, like, just to emphasize the fact that he still has enough arm strength to throw down the field.
So would you say that all those yards were garbage time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not arguing like, oh, that's why he should be top 10 because he put up 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. I'm just saying when the defense relaxed at the end of when the Cleveland Browns defense relaxed a little bit, he was still able to, at his age, to make those longer throws down the field. And I'm only comparing that the defense relaxing to what would happen if their running game was better than what they were this last year. Because that's my argument. My argument is they were throwing a lot sideline to sideline short quick passes because they didn't have that run support. If Najee Harris can get them that run support, we'll see the offense a little bit more vertically. They'll be a little bit more balanced, and I think he will look better. He will look better because he won't have all that pressure to just throw because he'll get a little bit. That's all I got. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that he threw all these yards and touchdowns against the Browns, so he should be top 10. I'm just using that as an example of what it would look like a little bit more with a better running game. And I think Najee Harris can give them that better running game.
Interesting. I don't agree with you at all, but we can get into that in a later episode. I am more content with you putting Matt Ryan at 10 than Ben, but we can get into that.
Yeah.
Another episode.
Last quick point, 3,900 yards, like 34 touchdowns, 10 picks is and a winning and like a 12-4 record is good enough for me, especially with that handicapped running game. I think the record will be very similar, and his yards will go up and touchdowns will be similar and interceptions will be similar. And you might see like a 4,300 yard, 30, 34 touchdown, 10 interceptions with a little bit better of a running game. And that's same record. Now, with that being said, TikTok boy needs to shut up and relax on his TikToks. So that's another outside variable. But that's really I feel more comfortable saying that I feel more comfortable giving Ben props for coming back from his like career-threatening shoulder surgery. Because we didn't know if he was going to play this last year. Because he could have retired because of his shoulder injury. But I feel better giving him the credit, saying, "Hey, you showed up and looked fairly good off his shoulder surgery and put up pretty good numbers with what you had with your running game. So I'm just going to give you the respect and put you a 10. And we'll see, and we'll see next year whether or not you were deserving of that spot.
So if you give Ben props for coming back in that game, making it halfway decent, then do you give Dak credit for coming back in the 2016 playoff loss? Do you give him credit for coming back, almost beating the Browns, for beating the Falcons? Do you give him credit for half the games where they were down by 14 points and he came back and they lost? Because if you're going to give Ben credit for being down 24 and coming back and making it a little bit of a better game, then you have to give Dak credit for half the stuff he does.
That's a completely different thing than what I was talking about. What I said, I'm going to give him credit from coming back from his injury and performing well. I already said that I'm not like basing his top 10 spot over his one game being down 28 points. I only used that game to emphasize that he was making longer throws downfield when the defense was more relaxed, and comparing that with an improved running game. That's already talked about. That's all I was emphasizing from that game. I said I'm going to give him the credit, and I'm going to feel better giving him the credit for coming back from a shoulder injury that was career-threatening, especially for an older quarterback, and being a winning team and having similar numbers to what we usually expect from him when he's a healthy quarterback.
If Dak threw half
if Dak comes back with this, I said this the year before. I said this last episode, and I don't think you remember.
I wasn't saying that.
If Dak comes back from his injury and improves his consistency and has the same amount of numbers and the same amount of numbers that he did in 2019, then the Cowboys are a playoff team and a Super Bowl threat. I'm saying that right now. And I will give him his top five spot because he would be deserving of it, because he would be a consistent quarterback.
No, what I was saying was that if there were a lot of games I saw where Ben threw the ball, just not Ben Roethlisberger-esque. And I was saying that if Dak threw some of the – I know you're very critical on the way Dak throws and his accuracy, and I'm just saying that if Ben threw half the balls – if Dak threw half the balls that Ben would, then you would never let him live that down.
I bet if I were to watch Ben Roethlisberger highlights from last year, it would be a lot of horizontal, short, quick passes. Would that be fairly certain? Because I didn't watch a lot of Pittsburgh games, because obviously I don't live in Pittsburgh and they are not the locally televised game. So I didn't watch a bunch. But I'm willing to bet that a lot of his throws were either sideline or short passes, and the more vertical ones were not as much attempted because they didn't have that balance, and the Steelers did not have control they didn't have control of what the defense was going to do, because they were one trick pony, short sideline passes, because they couldn't run the football. That's just my main point. I'm going to say if they can improve their running game, their record's going to be the same, and Roethlisberger's is going to look better. That's my point. If he doesn't look better, then I'm wrong, and he doesn't deserve the top 10, and I will be totally happy saying that.
I think they'll be either the third or fourth best team in that division. I think the Browns won away with it. I hopefully Pittsburgh has, because Pittsburgh kind of like glided through the year, but they played Dallas, who was a horrendous team by then, with their third quarterback, and they gave them a run for their money. And also in the playoff game, they looked like they were horrendous. And even when they were on like their hot streak, people were like, "This team is a bunch of phonies. Like, they're not good." And I think if you go a little bit further,
you would see the reason why they're phonies is because they cannot run the football.
It's also because their quarterback could not throw the ball that far.
If you cannot run the football, you will not win. That has been the oldest saying in the world, other than defense wins championships. If you cannot run the football in the NFL, you are not going to win the Super Bowl because you won't be balanced and the defense doesn't have to worry about you running on them. So they will just blanket your corners, they will blitz the hell out of you, and you won't be very good on offense. So if they can run the football next year, Ben will look better than he did the year before, which is a given for any decent quarterback. If their offense can run the football, they will look better. That's all I'm saying.
I guess we'll have to find out.
But I'm very comfortable with ending this show now. If you are comfortable.
Yeah, that is more than okay. Go for it.
Well, about it. I'm glad we had that little Ben conversation. I think we got through a lot of good stuff. I think everyone made some good points. Everyone was well prepared. I know sometimes I come to record, I'm like, well, I have no idea what I'm going to say because I didn't prepare. But I think both of us prepared pretty well, and we both got what we got to say. And even though this episode is definitely our longest one yet, I feel like it's the most the most structured. It's structured the best, and we kept the flow going and had really good things to say. But that's all we got for episode 5. Next week we'll have a lot more. Next episode we'll have a lot more training camp reports. Who knows? Maybe Aaron Rodgers will have a new jersey, have a new team. Maybe we'll get some interviews from players, have some highlights to talk about. Just get back into that preseason before the NFL season and get to kind of focus on what our team looks like and what they're doing in practice. But as I said, that's all we got. I'm Ray Nickens.
And I'm Owen DeChico.
And this has been episode 5, All About America's Team. Once again, before we go, you can find us on Instagram at All About America's Team and on Twitter, America's Team, capital P, capital C. Also, like I said, YouTube, just search All About America's Team in the search bar. You'll find us. It's pretty easy when you take that one initial step. And we'll see you next episode. Bye, guys. Thanks for watching.